Hello, this is J.N.S, and today I just want to do a real quick video on the differences between religion and mysticism. I just think that, you know, um, it's an interesting topic because you see like more people wanting to understand, like, okay, what exactly is mysticism? And I think that I just want to cover the topic. And so let's just get right into it. So, religion. Um, Generally it's a system of beliefs, so it's an organized system of beliefs. And in religion you usually have like some sort of ceremonies. You usually have specific tenets and rules that you have to follow. Generally you're expected to like exude a lot of externalization. This could be in the form of worship of like a god or even a group of gods. And so it's comforting to many people. It obviously has a dark side, and it also can bring about a lot of social interaction in terms of like the services, the weekly services that many of these religions have. Like for instance, if you attend church every Sunday or whatnot. But the difference between a religion and mysticism is that a religion is not able to substitute for the immediate awareness of consciousness of the ultimate reality. And so when you think about the even the root word of religion, it it alludes to like this sense of moral obligation, the duty, this sense of right. And actually, that's what the etymology of religion means. The etymology is religio, and that means moral obligation and this sense of rightness. And so, obviously, that can lead to extremes in fundamentalism that can take like a toxic turn for society. And we know just from history that religion has caused tons of chaos in the world. Um, Presumably, not even presumably, but they have some stats that state that religion has actually caused more deaths than like the actual wars. Particularly like the Crusades and the Spanish Inquisition rather. And these all of these wars fought in the name of God. And it's because of, again, that religio etymology of the sense of right and moral obligation that carries a frequency. So even just the definition of religion itself, alluding to moral obligation and sense of rightness, it's a frequency that is inculcated within the system itself. And so that leads to this organized system of beliefs and organized institutions and rules that would even engender people to feel so right and feel so, I guess, morally superior that they would have to infringe their particular beliefs on other groups of people. That's where you get like these the colonizer missionaries, all types of horrific things done in the name of religion. The way religion has justified the treatment of women in terms of sexual proprietary of women. And so, you know, um, as society evolves, they're becoming less religious, obviously. But people are wondering, what is this mysticism stuff, and what is the differences between spirituality and religion. And so, mysticism itself is more transcendental. It's more individualized as well. And so, it's a belief that you can be transcendental within your soul and your mind with the divine reality or divinity. And so, through mysticism, one can attain immediate awareness or a consciousness of God. So it's very experiential. It's a direct experience with God. It's not externalized. There's not even necessarily a set of rules and beliefs. There may be ceremonies, perhaps, And um, a lot of religions do have elements of mysticism in terms of like their particular offshoots or branches. And so, for instance, for what I know, Islam has a form of mysticism called Sufism. Obviously, Judaism has Kabbalah. Christianity has Gnosticism. Hinduism has a series of mystic school of thoughts from the Advaita Vedanta. They have an offshoot of those that follow more of the Bhagavad Gita. That's like the worship of Krishna. Then they have obviously the Shiva school of thought, Shivaism, Shaktiism, and so that in a sense can be looked at. It's more philosophical, but they certainly have elements of mysticism in that, and it is also believed that mysticism is I would say it truncates or has predated religion, because a lot of the texts that were collated, a lot of the collation of mythology and beliefs had to stem from someone's individual or yeah, individual mystic experience, and then you get the formalized texts and whatnot. But mysticism, all in all, is the experience of this direct communion with God, this direct knowledge of God. So it is a lot more intuitive based, and it is more experiential. And I think I said that already. And so it also extends beyond intellectual understanding as well as beyond sensory. And so those are the things I wanted you guys to know about the differences between religion and mysticism. Now, when yesterday I had mentioned that we were going to talk about like some spiritual systems today, and we're not really going to get into like any specific ones per se, but um, in my background, I pretty much have studied in a scholarly sense most of the spiritual systems in existence, whether they're mainstream or not. That doesn't mean that I practice um, every spiritual system, or that I even lend credence to it. It was just a simple study, just more of an academic sense. However, just the material that you study can still influence your energy in a sense. And so what I wanted to say for like those who are kind of like on a middle path, or a path of where you um because I don't want to say chaos magician, because that's not the word that I'm looking for, which this could go for those who are more of chaos magicians, but particularly those who are just curious and open-minded, and they are more spiritual, so they would go through a series of learning multiple things. And so I just wanted to give like some disclaimers about those who may do that, especially the young girls and young boys. I started my journey at around 19 in terms of mysticism. And so um, it started when I was thinking about going into seminary, and then I went and started to study the academic point of view of religion. So that required me to have to know, like, not so much required, but it was a part of the curriculum to study like all of these different um, religions, whether it be Buddhism, Hinduism, Christianity, Islam, etc., etc. Even the esoteric, uh, like more of the Hermeticism and whatnot. Um, and so that obviously, that background, it kind of expanded my view on things, and so much so that I just created my own shit. I said, you know what, this stuff is inspiring, it's cool, but I took it a little bit deeper and just was like, you know what, I'm just creating my own. What's the difference between you and a Mahavira or a Guru Nanak? A Mahavira created Jainism, and Guru Nanak created Sikhism. So I'm like, you know what, I'm just going to create my own shit. And I'm not saying you guys have to do that, but if you're going to be one of the ones that's into that, the a chaos magician or a mystic, and you are curious about things just for your own gnosis, I would say to at least take some time to learn a spiritual system before exploring another system. That can take anywhere from 1 to 3 years. And you want to do that because, for one, you want to, anything that you read, any of these texts that you pick up that have to deal with collective consciousness, in a sense where you are tapping into the archetypes or the dimensions of a particular entity or deity. Say you get into like Hinduism has about, I believe, up to 300 million different deities. That's, I mean, that number could be higher, but from, I remember about 10 years ago, I think the number was like at 300 million. That's a lot. Like that's quite a bit. And so they're obviously polytheistic. And so if you're one of these young people that goes into that, and you start like studying that from an esoteric point of view. But imagine if you're not looking at that academically, you're just curious to actually work with that sort of thing in terms of inculcating it in your spiritual practices. For one, again, it's going to take a lot of time. You have to see if that stuff resonates for you with you. There's that whole pantheon is so vast, you know, that it'll take years to even understand. But then there's philosophies within that branch. So then, like, what philosophy are you drawn to? And that's just with one particular religion. But then, so let's say you have some, as a chaos magician, you have some interest in learning about Hermeticism and the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus. I really don't get into the Western conceptions of the Hermes of Tahuti's teachings. I find it credulous, kind of. But let's just say you're one of those people that go into that. Uh, Again, it'll take time to study those conceptions to see if those energies even want to work with you. And one of the things I think people get gun ho about me personally, I was never that type in my journey, but they'll get gun ho about working with a new archetype or a new dimension, and it may not be for them. They'll have horrific experiences, and then they'll demonize the whole school of thought, or pathologize and say, okay, this is bad, and they'll run scared out of the particular uh path, or if not path, but that mystic school of thought, because of their horrific experience. That could be actually more so a feedback loop of a reflection of where you're at spiritually, of what were your intentions with working with that energy, and your experiences. Did that energy come to you? And so all of those things should be taken into account when you get into that mystic lifestyle. Now, some people are more ceremonial. They'll follow us. They believe very strongly that you must be initiated into things, that you must have these elaborate ceremonies, that you must pay your dues, that you must, like, there's some people that really believe in that. And then you have others like me who are very renegade, who are very like, look, um, I'm very intuitive. We're naturally, as humans, very spiritual. We're spirits in a human body, so we'll know intuitively what we gravitate towards, and we'll do that research and our due diligence to make sure that we're not stepping on any toes and being disrespectful before we tap into those realms and deal with those certain archetypes. And and so I would say for me, it took years to develop a lot of the knowledge that I know, a lot of the energies that I work with. It took years. It just wasn't me just sloppily going all over the place, because I know I can come off, you know like a typical chaos magician, like somebody that's just like, oh, okay, she just dibble and dabble into all these things, and then when something goes wrong, it's like, oh, see, that's what you get. No, not necessarily. I took years. I let energies come to me. I never seek out a particular deity or archetype. I've never have. They've always come to me. Kali came to me when I was 18 years old. When I was 19, I would say. When I was 19 years old, Kali came to me. When I was 18, Yeshua, I used to have dreams of, a lot. And when I say comments about visitations via dreams, I just want to make that clear. Visitations via dreams. And so those energies came to me, and so many. I remember, some of them came to me in dreams, but I never followed up on it because I just never cared to. Um, like I remember Horus coming. And I've never been really interested into the Egyptian pantheon, so I never got into that. But yeah, I remember having a visitation from Horus a while back. That was like in 2015, and I just didn't look into it. But if it's really interesting, then I will do the research and look into it. Even with certain ceremonial systems, I took like 2 years to learn the Solomon ceremonial system. I don't work with the lesser key of Solomon. That was just a executive decision on my part, based on some awareness that I have about the dimension that some of my prior um, soul experiences, rather, that just don't allow me to gravitate towards that energy. I have nothing against it. It's just not me. It's just not for me. And so for anybody that's like 19, 20, 21, in your 20s, and you're like, okay, you're getting into the mystic lifestyle, the esoteric lifestyle, I would say take your time with the material. Let the energies come to you, the archetypes come to you, and also seek for greater understanding and greater awareness first and foremost, as well as the energy that's going to allow you to grow to your highest self, to your highest purpose. That's also very important when dealing with that, because again, the intentionality is key when you're working with those energies, and you want to build up enough experience and enough wisdom before you get into like more the deeper paths. Like, say, for those who work with some of the hard energies, how do I say, some of the I'll say this, the chaos energies of the divine feminine. For instance, a Tiamat energy, the Kalima energies, the Lilith energy, the Azili Dantor energies. Those are very, very heavy, heavy energies to deal with. The Arishkaga. And so you have to build up a level, believe it or not. I would say, from my personal experience, a level of purity to work with those energies. Not so much in a sense of moral turpitude, but the maturity of the soul has to be there. You have to be really ready to release the ego, to release the lower self, to work with those energies effectively, um, in terms of really reaching a transcendent state. Now, I hear of people that, they have horrific experiences. Like, they'll say, oh, I worked with Lilith, and oh my gosh, it was so horrific. All these crazy things started to happen. And oh my gosh, don't ever go near that. Don't ever go near that stuff. And to be honest, these are archetypes, for one. So if you fear them, you're already subconsciously, if you're one of those ones that subconsciously see these energies as above you, or something you need to worship, something you need to placate to, you're already in the wrong state of mind. Also, if the intention is not aligned with that entity's energy and what they stand for, it's like output input. Whatever you output, sometimes it will be a feedback loop, and that energy will this send that energy back right to you. And so if your heart was not pure, if you haven't worked up enough stamina, or if it was just a frivolous, or maybe that archetype thinks what you're trying, your intentionality and that particular ritual or whatever you're trying to gain, is just foolish in their eyes, because they are so advanced and evolved beyond the human conceptions of this transactional relationship that many of you guys have with deities, in the forms of in the sense of, oh, you have to worship, or you have to beg and plead on your knees and be fearful. And some entities are just really past that. Some archetypes are just like, I don't like your energy. I really don't want to work with you. And so they'll have these horrific experiences, and then they'll run back to mainstream religion, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, and they'll have these horrific experiences. I have to say, I haven't had anything of this sort happen. As far as like horrific experiences, I haven't had anything like that happen to me. But I've heard of it, and it's definitely reality. And I'm not saying that it can never happen to me, But again, it's usually some sort of inner shadow, some sort of inner demon. We'll use the best word to say, some sort of inner demon within that is being projected onto that particular archetype or dimension, and then it starts to mirror you. It's like a mirror effect. And so you're looking at, you're projecting this fear, you're projecting this impurity in a sense onto this deity, and you already have these most likely indoctrinations and falsities about, those specific energies anyways. And so it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. One of the things though about the divine feminine, in terms of the dark divine feminine, when we're working with the heavy energies of like the crone mother energy, or the chaos intelligence energy, as quiet as it's kept, and this is not really well known in the esoteric circles and in uh, the even the occult circles. Working with those energies, believe it or not, you have to it's you have to build up a level of mindfulness and a level of purity. When you're working with the Kalima energy, you're coming with a heavy sense of awareness about yourself, and again, you're ready to walk away from the materialism. You're most likely a stoic of some sort. You're most likely well advanced, in terms of working with the with your energy, and we're working with those type of things. And so when people have like a bad experience with, oh, Kalima destroyed my life or whatever, it's like it's most likely a feedback loop of of a mirroring effect. It could be that, or it could be you asked for something and these were the steps required to get that result. It could be that, and so you would have to trust the process, and be mature enough to trust the process to get the final result of what you're looking for. Or you are projecting energies onto that archetype that cannot your deliver what you want based on that particular intentionality. Like, say if you want prosperity, you wouldn't go to Tiamat really, or to a Kalima for like, oh, you want this prosperity, as far as like this that's your intention. You want material prosperity, and you go to Kalima, it's like, well, I focus on like getting rid of delusions and ego, honey. Like I focus on uh waking you up to your godhood and to your God consciousness. I mean, we'll work with you. Like we'll do what we see what we can do, but there's far more energies that are more accessible. Say like a Lakshmi. You would go to like a Lakshmi more so for such a thing, or even a Ganesh, um and even some of the angels in the Solomonic path. So it can be that as well, and so people get excited and gung ho. Like I remember when Beyonce did like the yellow with the Oshun, and the was it the Lemonade album? Yeah. And everybody, all the girls, all of a sudden was a Oshun. Oshun was their head. Oshun chose them. Oshun is their mother. Oshun. And it was like, if I was that deity, I'd be gonna slap the shit out of I would be like, I'm done. Because and that's a part of the process of people exploring and getting excited. But I mean, I would just be so annoyed if I was that particular deity. And it's like, so I do want to suggest a really nice book that will help you find a deity that is aligned with your natal chart, that is aligned with your numerology based on your birthday. Let me see if I can pull this up right here. See if we can get it. Okay, yes, I'll pull it up and I'll share my screen. This book right here, I actually bought this, and it's a manual of how to find gods and goddesses using your particular numerology. And what's interesting, I'll tell you this: this book in particular um, confirmed. Sometimes it's confirming. Sometimes you're already well advanced on your path, and you already are working with certain entities. And when you do the numerology and you read the book, it's like, oh, every single for me, every single deity that came to me on their own in a dream, when I did this numerology and this linkage through this book, every single last one was already listed there, and I was like, oh, okay, and so I'll share that now because I mean it's not going to be a long video. Let's see. Here we go. So this book right here is really good. Okay, it kind of shows like, okay, here we go. And so it's called Deity Linkage Manual: How to Find Your Gods and Goddesses Using Numerology, Spiritual Parents, Matron and Patron Deities, How to Set Up Altar Prayer and Offerings. Again, for me, I just was curious. This was actually recommended to me. Uh, and so I had decided to read it, and what I found was that it was already confirming for me. It was already it already confirmed all of the deities that had already came to me um, through the numerology in terms of this book. And so I thought this was a pretty cool book to get. I didn't really use like the setup, altar, the prayer, the offerings. I didn't really use that. I just was curious about the numerology itself. Like this was it was a new concept to me, so I just wanted to try it out for myself. And I have to say, it was accurate. Yeah, so yeah, for those that are like going into that mystic path and they're not necessarily interested in following one particular mysticism, or they're just curious to explore at they're in a stage of exploration, and or maybe they're just looking at it from the scholarly point of view, the more academic point of view of looking at that material. I would say at least devote 1 to 3 years to a particular system before bouncing around. Again, I'm 31. I've been studying this stuff since I was 18, so I'm still a baby in a sense. But I did take a considerable amount of time, at least a year, to study different things. I know with the Solomonic, the Greater Key of Solomon, I took 2 years literally before I even touched, anything regarding ceremonial magic. I took 2 years. In 2 years is not nothing. Like people take 10, 15 years. And again, with the mystic experience, it's individualized, it's very personalized, and it's very experiential. So allow God to feed you that information and to speak to your soul and ask for that revelation. That can be via dreams or numerology. For me, I prefer dreams and numerology. I don't prefer to hear, how people be saying they hear voices and stuff. And I've never liked that. Or even people see things like, how people be like, oh, I see, some of the mediums and stuff. I never had that because I actually, it was a part of an agreement before part of my agreement for even coming down here. Like I don't want to see no sherm shit. You got something to say to me, communicate it in a dream or communicate it in numbers. I decipher numbers. Or in the gematria. I prefer gematria the most, but I'm still learning gematria, to be honest. But I'm like, I don't want to, like, I be listening to some of the sisters, other melanated sisters, and they be like, oh, I saw such and such just walk on past, or I just seen a spirit just walk. I don't. I have to say I've never seen it. And I remember one time when I had woke up out of the dream state. You think you see something, which I didn't, but um, it's interesting to hear other people's stories. But nope, I'm like dreams and numerology. That's it. That's it. I don't want to see nothing. So I never had experiences like when people be saying they be hearing stuff. I'm like, nah, that never happened with me. Oops. Oh, I didn't mean to play my feedback like that. Yep, but yeah, I think that's all I wanted to cover. More of the generation Z, they're going to be getting more into mysticism over religion. Um, and again, most of these mainstream religions have their own mystic system, so it's not really so far. It's not so dichotomous or so mutually exclusive. Like you have to choose one or the other. Like if like we were talking about earlier, Islam has Sufism, so it's not like, oh my gosh, like these our generations are gonna go into like this dark abyss. No, it's totally not like that. The humanity is evolving. It's as simple as that. They're evolving, And I think that's a good thing. I just don't want people to be reckless. Like there was that era in the 60s, the sex, drugs, rock and roll era, the Aleister Crowley type thing, the Western tantric thing had came into the U.S. and people lost their minds. You know, a lot of people started doing drugs, the psychedelics, and all that stuff, and people didn't know how to handle that information. I remember, well, I'm born in 1992, but I actually wrote a whole research paper on how Tantra entered the United States with Osho and Trungpa and the some of the tantrics, the Western tantras, sex magic in California and all that. So I was just researching all this stuff, and I'm like, and I started reviewing some of the clips from the 1960s of the things they were doing in the park and some of the interviews. And I'm like, them youth just woke up one day and said, you know, they were socially engineered into that. And I'm like, they just woke up one day and said, you know what, I'm gonna practice it. Just no experience, just, you know, just on a whim. And you know, people started getting into all types of, they started doing shrooms and, you know, passing around STDs, and the culture got fucked up, you know. So I would be really one of those advocates to tell, you know, the youth, like, you need a disciplined approach for that. For one, you need to master your emotions, master your mind, and discipline the body before you get into all them type of practices. Because again, it may, when we talk about like some of the stuff with the left hand path, yeah, it may be the easiest, fastest way to enlightenment if you know what you're doing, but it's also the fastest way to self-destruct. And every text warn you about that. Like all of the tantric texts warn you about it. And I'm not talking about Western left hand path, I'm talking about Eastern left hand path, by the way. Yeah, so I just wouldn't want nothing like that to happen. Like even with the popularity of the Aleister Crowley stuff, and I tried to read that, and I was just like, it just did not resonate with me. I'm like, it didn't resonate, you know. I just wasn't feeling it. But that's just me, you know. But you know, to this day, when you see the way the music industry models their whole craft after following that chaos magician, and a lot of his teachings are, for one, fucked up, misinterpreted, based off of ancient science that he didn't understand, that he did not even unlock, he didn't even really go through the proper channels to even understand that information. And so you got, you know, these magicians putting him on their albums. The Beatles had him on their album and all this stuff on the album cover. And I'm like, I mean, I read his stuff. I wasn't impressed. That's just me. I just wasn't impressed. And I saw it for what it was. I'm like, he done went and hijacked some people's shit, some melanated people's shit, and misinterpreted, and you know, what have you. And then they got melanated folk, Black Americans, following that shit. It's just a mess. It's a hot ass mess. So I'm like, man, if you're gonna get out, and I say this because I was just watching a video of XXX Temptation. Um, XXX Temptation was they had in like this. He was in jail, and he had, I guess, in a panic, called um a chaos magician and was asking for like a ritual to help get out of jail. And so he was trying to summon Hecate on a phone. And I was like, what kind of shit am I watching? I'm like, what kind of stuff? And it was just, it just seemed like kids playing around with something that they, you know what I mean? And that's a part of life too, to hit your head a couple of times, to play around with something and to bump your fucking head. And so that's a part of it. So you know, you have that element of it. But when I saw that yesterday, I said, you know what? I think I also want to talk about that as well. Like for the youth that want to get into the mystic, the whether that be the right hand path, left hand path, middle path, whether you are ceremonial, whether you are a chaos magician, whether you're a renegade, you want to take that slow. Take it slow. Take one step at a time. Allow those energies to come to you. Ask for revelation in your dreams. You can use the numerology, study your natal chart to see like what planets align with certain archetypes that you want to work with. And I'll say this lastly because I got to get off of here. Excuse me. Also, when you want to talk about getting to the next level, or when you think about like how you should deal with those energies, I would say the best way is to think of how you want to take that energy into your personality, how you want to merge yourself kind of with that energy. And so it's not so much that you have to externalize your power to that entity. You do not have to do that. You can look at this as a very philosophical, very scientific way. You don't have to, in terms of, okay, this is an archetype of an interdimensionality that I want to explore regarding my consciousness. And based off of this archetype's characteristics, I am going to inculcate that into my conscious mind or my prime conscious mind. And you would actually see some good results. For me personally, that was the best results I had. Versus you feel like you gotta go sacrifice a goat, go sacrifice, go do these things, go get all these this offerings and all of this stuff to please this deity, and then they start feeding and wanting more and more, and if you don't feed them, then they tear up your shit and all that. You really don't have to do all that. You don't have to look at it as transactional, and that's another thing I want to tell the youth to move away from this transactional thing. Some of them are always going to be transactional because they are tertiary or luminary deities, so they're not probably primordial. um but the ones that that can only be invoked if you bring them some rum or a cigar, or you know those type of things. And so I understand that. I'm not knocking that because it does work. uh However, the best results in terms of fast tracking your power and activating your power would be to see it more as a spiritual science, a spiritual technology in which you are exploring archetypes of interdimensionality of consciousness and assessing characteristics that you want to add unto your essence, add into your prime conscious mind. And so I'll give you an example. Let's say let's just say Ogun, for instance, this warrior energy of the metal, the irons. Um, Also, believe it or not, into the technology law, and not so much in a justice sense, but when you think of law enforcement, that is the Ogun energy, that warrior energy, very primal. I won't say primordial, but very earthly primal. It's very primal, and he loves dogs and he loves grapes, and he does the rum thing, and uh, raw steak, raw beef steak, believe it or not. Um, but just say you were looking at that as in an archetype sense, where you wanted to tap into that dimension to inculcate it into your prime conscious mind. You would say, okay, Ogun is known for sophisticated warrior tactics, and say you join in the military or something. Say you're about to go into the military. You say, I want to take on that energy of, you know, uh, being this warrior, having these advanced skills, and being fast with reflexes. Then you would simply merge with that energy. You would simply be that energy. That's all you have to, and you would merge it in your subconscious mind. And if you want to do the offering stuff, you can do that offering stuff. But I'm saying, as we going into more of the mental plane, you're going to see more of this become um kind of like I was talking yesterday about the show Shaman King, with this oversoul stuff. You're going to see it more become like that, where you could switch it out at will. This was the original form of monarch mentalism, of intergalactic mentalism, that got perverted and distorted on planet Earth, unfortunately. But this was this honestly was supposed to be this idea of mysticism and spirituality, and even a polytheistic thought. It was supposed to be a grand experiment with understanding, obviously, the ultimate divine and the creator God. But in terms of these different archetypes, that was really supposed to be it was the arts of the royal families. But um, it was really supposed to allow humans to explore the inner depths of their consciousness in terms of working with different aspects of dimensions and archetypes, and being able to harness that power. And to be honest, all you needed was the mental plane. You didn't need anything else. You certainly didn't need to sacrifice humans, and these they'd be doing the goats and the chickens and all that. I've never got into that. I never got into that whatsoever. um, but people do. You'll see people. You'll see that energy dying out. That era of that whole school of thought dying out, because you'll see that you can refill electrons and move the electromagnetic field of electrons and photons, as well as your infrared rays. Um, yeah, as well. Yeah, your infrared rays. You'll be able to shift that without having to resort to blood life force. You're going to be able to shift that just from the mental plane, and humans are going to be able to develop that gift. This is what Yeshua was trying to tell people. He said, "Greater work shall you do than me if you only you believe. You put in that work. You gotta believe. The intergalactic mentalism, the same thing that many of the archetypes are trying to allude to. Um, so we're going to see humans' ability to work with their own energy in very, very powerful ways, without having to feel like they have to steal. And again, this is not everybody. I'm talking about the mystic, and obviously some of the renegades, and obviously esotericists. I'm talking to them. If you guys play back this is my audience, most likely, um, or those who are just curious. But you'll see that you don't have to resort to the absorption of external forces, living forces, and other people, to get um, what people are looking for when they want to manifest, or when they want to go to the next level. And so I'll say that, and I'll end it with that. Yep, I'll end it with that, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye. Oh, I see some comments. I just want to address the comments first. Let's see. It says, I'm also happy for us underdogs having these reserve spells to put us on the top, because we in the era of pure higher. Yeah, exactly. It's about the purity. And that's what I was saying. I don't know if you caught it earlier when I was saying, like, we're working with the energies of the primordial mother, and people get all excited because it's just all this power, all of this access, all of this, they get so power hungry. And I'm like, no, those energies require purity. Those energy require a lot of love energy to even activate, and they choose you. You don't just go to Kalima and TMI and on some fuckery, and I do agree that we're in the era of pure higher heart, so all of this stuff with the blood, with the ridiculous blood magic, and all the stuff that these chaos magicians were doing, or even ceremonial magicians, they're going to see like that stuff just die out. Like, even a lot of people that was following the Crowley way, they're going to be like, I have to, the people are just going to evolve. They're going to evolve, and they're going to be able to do a lot of things through the mental plane. And to me, that's good from my perspective, because that's all I've been dealing with is the mental plane. Maybe a offering here or there of to the righteous ancestors, like maybe like a piece of cake or something. But like, when I hear some of the things I've had ex friends like tell me that they will rip out the heart of a cow and squeeze it, and so that they could take out such and such, so that they can inherit their parents' wealth or something. I've literally heard shit like this. Like, I'm saying, I'm just giving a general, but like literally, I heard about taking a cow, squeezing the cow's heart, and because the friend was mad at the mother. I said, what the fuck? It was just so foreign to me. I was just looking like, what in the world? And then they were trying to get me into that stuff. They were trying to get me into, yeah, we gonna go into the go away shop. I'm like, nah, that's to me, intergalactic mentalism, everything from the mental plane. All you need is your mental and your heart spaces. Your heart is a neural system too. And so, like, when you're working with some of them, if you want to go to like that world, everybody is in quest for this power, and they feel like they working with the highest forms of they want to work with Kali, or they want to work with the Tahudis. Now, them energies require a lot of purity. And another thing that these magicians are realizing is they were working with homunculus. They were working with entities that were posing as other deities, and they didn't know, because how would you know? Even if you are ceremonial, it don't matter if you study 30 years and you a ceremonial magician and you just set up the circle, whatever, and you conjure up the entity that's saying they Tahuti. They could say they Tahuti, but is that really Tahuti? Like, or is that really the demon that you think you conjuring? Is it really them, or is they could they be acting like they them? So that's a thing. And you said that sounds to me like reptilian. It is. A lot of archons, they do that shit. They'll tell you that they one thing and it don't be them. And so a lot of that's another thing that people are going to be realizing, like with this shakedown. It's a shakedown of epic proportions in the spiritual world, believe it or not, because it's a lot of imbalance. It's just a lot of fuckery, and it's been a lot of imbalance. And so it's the pure removal of low governing force. It's nothing personal. It's just something the universe does, particularly the primordial mothers. And so them primordial mothers, they're gonna be, and people are annoyed, like, oh, we got. I hate when people talk about we gotta be moral. I hate when people talk about we gotta be. It's not even about that. It's just about input output, and it's like, and we're in a day and age where it's just too much imbalance. And so what they call the Kali Yuga, and Kali is so upset that they decided to call the age that we are currently in Kali Yuga. But because it's just like, really, you're gonna call the age of deception, name it after the primordial mother, like, really? But it was certainly an age of deception. And so right now we're coming out of that age. We're coming out of that age of deception. We're going into this age of cleansing, higher consciousness. We're going into an age where there's more balance, and it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that. Oh, thanks, Water of Humanity. It's been a rough. I've been doing this stuff for 2 years, and they've been coming after me, man. I'm like, dang, I didn't know what I was talking. To me, I just was writing my books and just talking my shit. But I didn't know it was that threatening to to talk about these things. And I guess because I'm renegade, I'm not initiated in anything. I'm not controlled or in some organization. So it makes me be perceived as a threat, because anything can come out of my mouth, because I'm not bought. And there's nothing hanging over my head. I don't owe anybody anything, except for like student loans. But so um man, they be trying, they be coming. And it's not just me, it's a lot of us that's out here, that's renegade, that's trying to help humanity, and trying to you said this uh, perhaps. I saw your comment. Yeah, but it's a lot of us, that deals with the shenanigans, because we want to, uplift humanity and actually tap into our higher self at the same time. And like you were saying about like these archon, that archon energy thrives off of all of us being in our lower selves, being disconnected and unaware. And so those of us that break out of this system and don't want to play that game, that derma urge turns on you, in a sense. And that could be a perception too. I'm also willing to grasp up with the fact that that can be a perception of a trick of my own photons, or a trick of my own mind manifesting it. And so that is also something I'm exploring in real time. I'm exploring, like, okay, if you change the perception of way you see things you perceive change. That's also true. But I also sometimes sense that there is, a legitimate external, you know uh force, trying to disrupt some of the things that I'm trying to get out to humanity. And so, just grappling in real time with that. That's all. So I'll talk to you guys later. I actually have a meeting to get to. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.